Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Wallace, will you lead us? Let's pledge, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for joining us today, and we're going to get to our agenda. I'd like to ask our clerk, Stacy Hamilton, to call the roll.
Mr. Hostetler?
Here.
Mr. Lyons?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Present.
Mr. Ellison?
Here.
Mr. Burke?
Here.
Mr. Livingston? Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Judge Covington?
Present. Thank you all again, and we're going to get started here. Item number 4, the minutes from our previous meeting. Are there any questions or comments to those minutes as presented?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Corman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second from Mr. Ellison. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Judge, I'm going to abstain. I wasn't here.
Okay. Let the record reflect, Stacy, that Mr. Hostetler's abstaining due to his absence last meeting. With that said, we'll move to number 5, the transfers as presented in your packet. Are there any questions or comments to any of the transfers as presented? Motion from Mr. Hostetler. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Wallace. Are there any other questions or comments related to those transfers as presented? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Stacy, let the record reflect that Magistrate David Livingston's joined us now. Next, number 6, bills and hand checks as presented. Are there any questions or comments related to that agenda item?
Did we just get one added? Just like,
Yeah. Yes, we
I
did.
had an email just come, or maybe it's been here.
Stacy, did we add one at the one hand check?
Walmart. Yeah, okay.
Walmart.
Gotcha.
Joe Pat, your agenda is correct.
Okay.
It's a total of 2 now.
Okay. The Walmart and then the road general.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Corman to approve, a second from Mr. Lyons. Any other comments or questions related to that item? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, I'd like to recognize and ask Rand Marshall, our county attorney, to read a proclamation from Mr. Jan Southworth. And he's here with us today, and we appreciate your service very, very much, and are happy for you to be able to retire and do as you please. So,
Jealous would be the
yeah,
word,
jealous.
from my standpoint.
Smart.
I don't know if it's gonna be what he pleases. Maybe we better look down a couple of seats.
This is a proclamation of the Scott County Fiscal Court honoring Jan Southworth for 18 years of professional service working for the Scott County Fire Department. Whereas Jan started as a volunteer firefighter for the Scott County Fire Department on July 2nd, 2002. And whereas Jan has also served for the Georgetown Police Department as a police officer and also as a special deputy for the Scott County Sheriff's Office. Whereas Jan was a member of the Firefighters Local Union 4215, serving for some time as the union president. And whereas Jan has responded to innumerable structure fires and has been involved in multiple life-saving rescues, as well as numerous property-saving calls. Whereas Jan has also been involved in many vehicle extrications in his career, saving countless lives. Whereas throughout his colorful and eclectic career, Jan has been a staple and the backbone of the Scott County Fire Department. Whereas throughout his involvement with the communities of Georgetown, Sadieville, and Scott County, Jan has served with the distinction and honor as a true hero and a valued community asset. Whereas Jan Southward has decided to resign his position with the Scott County Fire Department and enter retirement, now therefore let it be known that the Scott County Fiscal Court and Judge Executive Joe Pat Covey hereby honor and praise Jan Southworth for his faithful service to the citizens of Scott County and wish him the very best in his retirement.
Motion for approval?
I didn't think we had to do that.
I'm not sure it'll take that, Jan.
We usually get everybody up and take a picture, but.
I didn't think we did, Chad.
In today's days, maybe I'll just, you stand right here and we'll just hand it to you. And I think Mr. Scoggin wants to take a picture of you. We sure do appreciate you. Hey,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Judge, could I make comment real quick?
Absolutely, and I apologize. I should have called on you to do so.
Oh, that's all right.
My apologies.
I just wanted to reiterate, having known Jan for, I don't know how many years now, he used to throw me down in the backyard and play basketball. He was mean to me. He was mean to me when I was a kid. But I just want to also put out there that Jan has also been a member of the city fire department. He was a dispatcher. And he's been an EMT since 1983.
Yeah.
I know that because we went to class together. This is a long time ago. But Jan has been a true asset, a true friend to me, and he's taught me a lot over the years. He's a true mentor to everybody on the department, and we're so honored to have had him, and he's going to be a hard man to replace.
Chief, appreciate those words. No, thank you very much. And Jan, thank you. Best of luck. And thank you to the family for sacrifices you all have made as well. I'm going to ask Rand to move to number 8 in our agenda. We have a proclamation, Brandon Remley. And it's actually a joint proclamation from the city and the Scott Fiscal Court. And the mayor and I both signing it. So would like to ask Rand to read it.
It is a joint proclamation of the city and the county, whereas friends and family are gathered on this day to celebrate Brandon Remley for over 21 years of professional service working for the Georgetown Scott County Emergency Management Services. Whereas Brandon began his employment with EMS on April 24th, 1999, serving as a paramedic. Whereas Brandon was promoted to the ranks of EMS and became director on June 1st, 2015. Whereas Brandon has received the Pediatric Quality Care Award from the Kentucky Board of EMS. Whereas Brandon has received the Mission Lifeline Award from the American Heart Association. Whereas Brandon received the Cardiac Care Award from the American Heart Association. Whereas Brandon has faithfully executed his duties working for EMS at the highest level and always in the best interest of the citizens of Georgetown and Scott County. And whereas it is wholly appropriate to recognize his service by executing a joint proclamation. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Tom Prather, Mayor of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky, and Joe Pat Covington, Scott County Judge Executive, do hereby honor and praise Brandon Remley for his faithful service to our community.
Brandon, same thing. Really appreciate your dedication, your commitment to our community, and the years that you've put in and sacrifices. We really are going to miss you and appreciate all you've done. Hey, thank you. Anybody else like to say anything in regards to Brandon and his service? We're really going to miss you and appreciate all you've done. You've done a great job. Thank you so much.
Judge, I'd like to say to Lieutenant Southworth and Brandon, I've had the opportunity to work with them for many, many years, and been a pleasure to work with you. We'll miss you.
I'm here, Sheriff. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sheriff Hampton. Appreciate that much.
Chief, you didn't throw Brandon down.
All right. We appreciate your all service and commitment to our community. So, number 9, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, and I'd like to call on Jeff Mudrack to step up and discuss EMS new hire.
Yeah, get your stuff out, Brandon, we're hiring. Yeah, on the heels of Brandon's proclamation, on your behalf, Judge Covington, I'm glad to present to you the name of the individual who will be replacing Brandon after conducting a national search. That individual is Chris Runyon. He has been employed since February 2017 as the Assistant Director of EMS for Quality Assurance and Quality Improvement Programs. He has 31 years of related experience and has served in leadership supervisory positions for approximately 25 years. Chris also holds a bachelor's degree in organizational and leadership development from Wheeling Jesuit University. In addition, he possesses all the required certifications for the position. I hereby recommend that his appointment be effective August 1st, 2020 as EMS Director.
What questions or comments does anyone have related to this recommendation?
Will that leave us with any gap between having a director?
No, it'll,
be
Brandon
set?
gets to work until July 31st.
Poor Brandon going from the fire to the pan, or the pan to the fire. So, through the interview process and comments from the committee, Chris brings a world of experience. Chris has great attention to detail and very detailed in his presentations, and communicates very well, and also, I think will continue the practice of being top-notch in training. I think that's what Brandon's legacy is the training that he has demanded and that he's set up and helped, and I think Chris will continue that legacy and move us forward. And I'm happy to recommend Chris and answer any other questions anyone might have.
So now we'll have an assistant director vacancy, which we'll entertain in August.
Correct.
Yeah.
But, of course, we'll go through the process and would want Chris heavily involved in that.
Absolutely.
It's like your head coach always wants to be able to help pick your assistant coaches and your team, so we want him to be a part of that, definitely.
Motion, Judge.
Motion from Mr. Hostetler, a second from Mr. Livingston. Are there any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, Chris. Chris, if you'd like to introduce yourself and say any words, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we're glad to have you.
Thank you, Judge Magistrate. It's just an honor, the recommendation. And like you guys just heard, it's some big shoes to fill. I'm excited to make that attempt, but I very much appreciate it. And like I said, it's just an honor to serve, so thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you all. With that, I think we'll move down to number 10, ordinance 2004, first reading. And Rand and I and Darren Broyles, and we have conferenced with our district and circuit judges and our public defender and Commonwealth attorney as well about this. And I'm just going to let Rand share some comments and then go from there.
You may recall several months ago, the court approved a contract with CCA to do this, to do a home incarceration program. And that was started. And in the middle of that, I think we had some concerns about maybe the charges that some people had that were getting the home incarceration program and were paid for by the county. So we had some meetings, and one of the things that came out of those meetings was the discovery that we need an ordinance to even do that. I was not aware of that. That's my fault. So the people that were already in the program, we left them in the program. There's about 31. But we did not add any new ones to the program, and I'm talking about county paid. They're still doing others, but we're not paying for it. So, we've had several meetings about drafting this ordinance. I don't think it makes sense to read it today. I would encourage you to look it over. The reason I think it doesn't is because we've still got to do some more work, I do, after getting input on the exact kind of persons that are going to be eligible for this program. And obviously, at the end of the day, you all will approve or disapprove this. I'm under the impression that we all have concerns about, what charges someone can have and get out and have us pay for it. For example, if they have a violent offense or a sexual offense, we don't want to pay for that. We don't think they should be out. But there's so many different situations. Right now it says no one charged with a violent or sexual offense. Well, we've had discussions about what is violent, and at the end of the day, we're going to have to define that. But there's some cases, if two buddies are at a bar and they get in a fight and they get charged with assault, well, we probably wouldn't have a big objection to that. But if I beat up my wife, that's a different situation. So it needs a lot more work, I think is the bottom line. Certainly any input you all want to have now or later, please let me know. And as we tune this, and I'll be working on that, hopefully have a draft to you before the next meeting to look over, so you all can just kind of start thinking about it.
Just, our goal was to try to have a first reading, but at this time, I think it's prudent just to wait and let Rand try to words, just to define some of the different items on there. And it's my recommendation that we just, as Rand has recommended, that we let him do a little bit more work and bring it back the next time. But we wanted to talk about it, and if anybody had any questions, we would try to get those questions answered.
I did have a question. We've already got some folks in there, and we didn't have the ordinance, which, is there any ramifications to that?
Well,
Well, you tell me if I'm wrong. Ultimately, the district or the circuit judge makes the order to place the individual on home incarceration.
yeah,
It's just who's paying for it is
Right.
this issue.
yeah.
So the judge's order, and would you like to comment on
Well,
that?
we've had those discussions too, and, we feel like that would cover us. That is, if the judge has ordered a person in the program, whether we paid for it or not, that would cover us. The statute requires we designate some county agency to oversee it. We're talking about the detention center for that.
And the way that started, it started back in the spring when the Department of Local Government informed us, Michelle and I, that it had to be in the jail's budget. And, all due respect, I respect Darren Broyles. Darren wanted, if it's gonna be in his budget, Darren wanted some oversight and input. And I understand that and respect that. So, after going back and forth with DLG repeatedly, ultimately DLG answered, I think Darren asked the question, is it in state statute that it has to be? I think that was the question, and Darren's on the call right now. I believe that was the question, and the answer was no, but, it was already in the budget. Out of respect for Darren, Rand and I have met with Darren, and Darren's met with us probably 8 times. I mean, I don't know how many times, but trying to iron this out and move it forward. And Darren, you'd be, if you'd like to make any comment, you're more than welcome to.
No, I think you pretty well covered it, Judge. Thank you.
Okay, I just didn't want to not offer that to you.
So if the ordinance has to have a group in charge of it, which would be the detention center, then why would we not just let the detention center run the program instead of having an outside agency do it? Now, I know we already have contractually, we're already with them, but that's the
a good question. But, if Darren's group was going to run it, they'd have to have the software, they'd have to have the equipment, the man, probably somebody you'd have to have somebody dedicated. And that's why we went the route of CCA, and that's a lot of counties use third party. And matter of fact, it's included in a different piece of the KRS that, you know,
Yeah.
a third party can do this, and many counties do it, but then some jails do it themselves. But we went the route of a third party just for those facts. So, you know, what we're trying to try to line out is, you know, Darren's overseeing the process, and then ultimately, Sheriff Hampton's agency, has a hand in it. If somebody absconds, or if someone, what's the wording in it?
Yeah, if they violate their monitoring, then Tony's office is responsible to help victims, witnesses, petitioners in DVO hearings in which they use this, so.
And then, one of the things that needed to be lined out was that if somebody violates the terms and CCA gets notification, then CCA will notify the jail, and the jail will then notify appropriate law enforcement agencies to follow the protocol. And that's in the draft ordinance. So I think we need just to iron out a little bit of language, then Rand send you all back the draft after it's been ironed out, and then we take it up at the next meeting. Everybody good with that? All right, thank you all. At this time, number 11, we have some jail detention center new hires to bring to the court. Darren?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, magistrates. I've got a couple of part-timers that I'd like to submit for your consideration for full-time hire. It's Jacob Oakes and Dustin Sparks. They are currently part-time, meet all the qualifications for full-time. They would start out at $15 an hour.
Any questions or comments for Jella Broyles?
Darren, what's that do to your staffing levels, or you got any open positions, or?
Well, we're always hiring part-time, Mr. Hostetler, if you know any likely candidates. But this will take the full-time positions. This will completely fill our full-time positions. So we'll be back fully staffed as far as our full-time positions go.
Any other questions? Is there a motion? Motion for Mr. Lyons, a second for Mr. Hostetler. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Jella Broyles.
Thank you very much.
Number 12, Great Crossing Park parking discussion. This is just a discussion. It's been brought to me by David Livingston and Bill Burke. You know, we've had a couple events for some competition at Great Crossing Park, and I'll let David, or I'd like to ask David or Bill to comment. You know, just with 14 teams at one event, the parking was all over the place, wasn't it?
Yeah, if you see where, I'm glad the judge has these today, if you see where that arrow is for discussion for related parking, those areas are actually dirt. It's field. It's not. There's no gravel. There's no parking spaces put in at this time. That's for future parking. But not only did the event that had the 14 teams fill up the actual paved parking lot, it filled up the entire field, and then they started parking around the entranceway all the way around. And so it was, it worked well, because I stood out there and directed traffic for about 2 hours, 3 hours. But it can get pretty hectic, and just for uniformity and making sure people aren't parking where they shouldn't be parking, and to keep them off the shoulders of the roads. You know, I mentioned to the judge that we need to talk about what we could do with that field to make it suitable for some parking. Maybe not fully pave it right now, but just gravel it, compress it, and compact it, and paint lines, something that the road department could do at this point, just to take care of it.
And I've talked to JR, and Bill, do you want to make any comment to what you observed? You had called me and said that it was an issue.
The day I drove down there, Judge, it looked like Fayetteville at Christmas time. I mean, they were parked everywhere, up on the curbs, up in the trees and everywhere else. And like David, you know, we have two places down there that we had graded off for future parking. And, we need to do something, otherwise if it rains, people will be parking in the mud and that will be a mess.
So with that,
I was gonna suggest short term, you know, until we do come up with a long range plan, let's get, with our road department and put some gravel or some chat down there and pack it down so that it does create solid parking. I don't know that we need to go into asphalt this year, but it's certainly something, you know, if we're gonna continue to do this, we need to look at.
so looking forward, I think through October, there are 10 more events, weekend events between now and in the middle of October. So it's going to be a busy event, you know, it's a busy spot. I asked JR, and JR, would you step up and tell the court, you know, JR did some calculations and looking at a 250-foot by 100-foot dense grade, 4-inch deep of gravel. It costs about $9,600 estimate of gravel.
4 inches deep, compacted, met with you, met with Mr. Livingston, and we kind of looked at it, and I measured it with a measuring wheel, and we kind of figured that would be in an area to start with, and you're looking at about $9,600 worth of gravel.
JR, if you put the DGA down, you're set up for when we choose to blacktop it, it'll already be, the foundation already be set up.
Yeah, you do that anyway to get a great base on it, and we would go in there probably with what's called a Harley power rake, skim the top of the grass off and everything, roll it down, and then start putting dense grade in and level it out and roll it again, compact it.
So my intent today was just to have a discussion and present to you all information from JR, and, you know, it would go where the projected phase 2 parking would be if the court ever decided to build phase 2 of the cloverleaf, the second cloverleaf up on the top, you know, at 12 o'clock on your sheet. So, you know,
We could build the parking lot regardless
No.
if we build the fields.
Oh, yes, but I'm just saying that that's where it was projected to go anyway. If we ever built phase 2, it would, you know, would not be wasted.
Yeah.
And if you ever build phase 2, you're gonna have to put even more parking.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
Apparently, he's gonna need more.
Yeah.
We argued about that when we were building the first phase, about the amount of parking, and
It's hard to pay for parking. I mean, it's a lot of money for paving.
Yeah.
So, it's a
But
good
JR,
cost.
if you all, if it was hauled in, you all could, you know, roll it and get it with the equipment we have, you all could get it in working shape. Bill Burke, you have a question.
Judge, I don't have real good audio here. I'm kind of struggling a little bit. Whatever we do, whatever we put down, we want to make it such that when the time does come, we can just roll asphalt over top of it. I mean, we want this thing graded off, and I think I heard JR say 4 inches deep. Whatever the standard is, I just, you know, I just don't want to get to a point where we cut that more than 3 times and it's still too short. I want to do it right the first time. And so whatever gravel down, we want that to be the good base for any asphalt we put on top of it.
Yes, sir. I agree with you. And JR, you felt like what you were proposing would be a setup for future, if we ever wanted to pave it,
Yeah, it'd be a
right?
good base, but you gotta keep in mind too, we're doing a temporary parking lot with gravel.
Yeah.
Vehicles traveling on it, spinning, digging, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You will have to go back and put more gravel and level it
Yeah.
out prior to asphalt.
But you're not gonna have to move that gravel
No,
and,
no.
you know, it's,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna pack it down by driving on it. And eventually, when we do go to asphalt, we're gonna have to go back in and level it off again and pack it down again.
Can I ask?
I'm good with it. I'm good with it.
All
Is there a
right,
reason why
David
we
Livingston?
Is there a reason why we wouldn't give JR the green light to go ahead?
It's under your,
Well, here's what I always like to bring, I don't want to bring stuff to you and ask you for action, but it makes sense to me to answer your question, but I was going to let.
10 more events just like that, then.
Yeah, I was gonna let you all, and then here's the other thing. JR has a full slate of commitment, mowing and, I mean, his plate is full.
We will work it in if it's the wishes of you and the court. Absolutely, grass is slowing down, where mowing's a little bit less hectic and everything, and we can work it in.
what kind of time frame? Like if you had gravel delivered one day, how long does it take for you to get that done?
I can put a crew on it, probably week or so.
Okay, because what I was thinking of, if there's an open date coming up soon, not allow that date on that weekend to be filled. So if he's in the middle of doing it, we don't have that area completely.
Sure. So maybe we could look at that. Is there, and please know that, I wanted to present this for discussion, and I do believe it's a need. And
I was down there during the tournaments, just drove down there.
you were as well.
There is a need, absolutely.
They're not, we have games, not tournaments.
Competition.
Games, I'm sorry.
Competition.
Well, are there any other questions?
Well, it's obvious it's a need. Do you have any idea how many spaces it'll add?
I kind of figured in my mind, having 2 lanes.
Kind of double?
Yeah, probably 75 to 80 parking spaces you could put into this.
Yeah, because there's 100 and some when you count the tennis courts. I'm assuming they were using it too. Oh, they weren't?
No, they were all being funneled into one, because of everything that's going on, you're bringing people in through one gate. That weekend that we were out there.
One gate to get in there, isn't there?
There's 2.
I think there's 3.
Well, there technically is, but
Yeah.
you got the tennis court gate,
Yeah,
and then you got the main gate.
yeah.
But
And so you're having to do temperature checks when people come in. So closed off the tennis
Oh,
court
you're
gate
Yeah.
and can't.
You're talking about the gates to the facility.
Yes.
The field. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're talking about the main entrance. Okay, I got you.
Just the driving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's only one entrance, right?
Yes.
We need to add a gate for swimming too, but that comes later.
All right, is there any other questions, or anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All right, there's a motion, is there a second?
I'll say.
A second one from Mr. Ellison. Any other comments or questions to approve the allocation of $9,600 for gravel and for JR's team to tackle it? I did check with Michelle, and Michelle said we're good on that. If we had anybody bring up a motion, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all very much. And that brings us to our final item on our agenda, and it is a Parks and Recreation agreement. It's essentially the same agreement that we've had in the past, except for just a few changes related to adding the Great Crossing Park facility, essentially for Great Crossing High School, for tennis, and for cross country as well, and
their athletic classes go over.
yeah, and PE class will walk across the street and do a tennis lesson as well. So it's just adding that formality, and this came to my spam mail from a Konica Pavilion copier back in May, and it sat there until I had a call a couple of weeks ago from Kim and said, "Joe Pat, did you ever get that?" And I had to dig, and I looked, and sure enough, there it was. So it's that's why we're a little bit tardy on addressing it, but it is very similar to what we've done, just adding that. And Chad do you have any comments to the?
It's a standard contract that we normally have done with the school system, and we're approving it this year because the fiscal court is in basically control of the Great Crossings Park, and that's why we're involved with this year.
Any other questions or comments related to the proposed?
There was discussion a few years ago regarding softball and baseball and summertime use. And the discussion, the concern was that baseball pretty much has the facility locked up year-round, almost. But the softball gets turned over to basically Scott County Softball Club to use it. And we had discussions in the past about other outside organizations using the baseball. I thought at some point in time, this agreement is so dang old that it's been the same one for probably 20 years.
I don't think so. I think they got it all adjusted. didn't they?
Yeah, so what happened is that Parks and Recreation changed their policies, not the contract, with outside groups. And so in the absence of the school system not using it, and I can use specifically Nucci Varner baseball,
Yeah,
they are charging them a fee to use the field. And so the policy changed with Parks and Recreation and how they deal with those
But
groups.
if you look at that, it still ties up.
From
an
June
individual
1st
can
to-
tie up the fields for nearly the whole summer.
But what it says is, from June 1st to July 31st, they have priority. But Nucci Varner can, I think in the past, the high school baseball team has, played a summer season.
Right.
Whereas high school softball, all those girls have.
No, and I'm not arguing about the
Yeah.
softball side, I'm talking about the baseball side, because
Yeah.
we've already been through this
Yeah.
discussion probably.
So you're just talking about, do other people have access?
Right.
And from my understanding, and I drove out there by there the other day, and there was a youth camp going on, and I think it was Nucci Varner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think our baseball is, well, of course, it's been covered.
Yeah.
I think they really backed off those summer stuff with our.
And he hasn't played as long, they've had good success, and they have played up into June into the state tournament.
Mhm.
And with that, they've shortened their summer season just because they need a break.
Right.
Um,
The way it's worded,
Yeah.
it would allow someone in the future to just really shut everybody out if they wanted to.
And it sounds like to me,
And I
in the,
don't have an issue with the current folks that handle that program, do a great job, and they don't do that. But I worry about what we write for long-term, but
Right.
it's, they're
What-
gonna have a new facility.
they're gonna build a new facility, and I think we'll have to readjust it
Right.
completely then. So that is something that would need to be addressed. Is there anyone that's willing to make a motion on the approval of this as presented?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Wallace, a second from Mr. Livingston. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that said, do we have a motion for adjournment? Motion from Mr. Livingston. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. Hostetler. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned. Be safe.